Hello and welcome to a sort of special follow-up video to our previous episode review of the Dance of Dragons. Here we mentioned when we posted the video that we did that one very, very quickly, very tired watching it. I mean, we watched it at 3 a.m. our time, and then we basically slept low, and we watched it again, and we filmed right off. And we kind of missed the fact that there was the inside the episode. I mean, I posted it, but I didn't actually look at it because we were just in such a rush. But what we missed was the fact that David Benioff and Dan Weiss offered comments on the burning of Shireen. And I guess a warning here for those seeing this video: this is going to contain some real spoilers. We think, and we'll explain why we think it's a spoiler and why it's such a big issue. Because when we learned about it and then when we saw it, I mean, I have to say we were both livid. It was a shock because, and we'll explain. People say, "Oh, well, do you have to assume at this point that things are going to be spoiled because they're going to go?" But no, we'll explain what the issue really is. Let's first start off. We'll cut to a little brief break so we can break this up into sections. And then the first thing we'll explain exactly what was said.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So inside the episode, when we're discussing what happened with Shireen, David Benioff, there's very smart from David and then Dan, and then we go back to David. And this is what he says. When George first told us about this, and it's quite clear he's talking about the burning of Shireen, it was one of those moments where I remember looking at Dan and thinking, oh, that's so horrible, but so good in a storytelling sense. Because it all comes together from the first time we saw Stannis with Melisandre. Burning people, I mean, on the, funnily enough, I mean, the first time we see them, they're not burning anybody. They're burning the statues of the Seven.
Didn't they conflate it with burning somebody as well? In that scene? I thought they did.
I don't think there was anyone burning in that one. Nope.
I think they did.
Maybe they did.
Somebody actually suggested that he was burning his relative, as in the Florent.
Oh, you're right. Yes, in the first. You're absolutely right. Oh, okay.
So,
my fault there.
They were burning family.
Yes.
Already.
So they said, they thought it was so good from story sense that it comes to this. Because from the start we've seen Stannis burning people,
his family,
and so on.
Yeah.
To me, a lot of people want to read this as it's not we don't know what this is. We don't know what it means. Yes, maybe he means the burning of Shireen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Stannis is involved. The fact that it comes back down to what Stannis was doing is, to me, the thing that makes it. What's so good, horrible, and good in a storytelling sense is the fact that
it ties in to what we've already seen, sort of foreshadowed in Stannis. So I'm 110% certain that what they mean is that George told them that Stannis will burn Shireen. Not just that Shireen will burn, but that he will do it. Because that is what they considered so horrible and yet so good in a storytelling sense.
Yes.
The fact that he has to make this decision.
To me, it's... at the bare minimum, everyone has to agree. They have absolutely 100% confirmed that Shireen will burn in the Winds of Winter. And I'm, as of Linda, convinced that they mean that Stannis will burn Shireen. And a lot of people who love Stannis can't see how he could do it. And I've explained, actually there's an IO9 article, Charlie James Anders asked our thoughts about it, and I offered our view, which is it's from the time we were introduced to Stannis, from the time we were introduced to Shireen, we've known that Shireen is doomed, I think. Her dreams of stone beasts, breathing shadow flame, and there's a sense of doom, and you keep having King's blood. And if Edric isn't around, if Gendry isn't around, there are only two people left, basically. Well, there's one other person, but we think. But as far as Stannis is concerned, there's Shireen, and there's him. And we go into detail in that article. I'll try to remember to post a link about why we think that it fits Stannis to do this. I mean, we refer to Agamemnon and Iphigenia, not from the Iliad. I meant the epic cycle, the Homeric cycle.
I did try to.
Yes, I know you did try to trip me.
But yes, I couldn't remember what the
The epic
Bad
cycle,
classicist,
and specifically, the most well-known version of it is Euripides. Was his play about Iphigenia at Aulis.
Yeah.
And again, Age of Bronze, Eric Schanauer does a great job with playing with all those sources, basically.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. But we think, it's funny, I was thinking about the fact that I was drawing on this. I mean, it's not just, this is an old idea, of someone being challenged to sacrifice their own blood. I mean, you have the Old Testament, Abraham prepares to sacrifice his son, and at the last moment God says, psych, just kidding, you don't know how to do it.
It's a standby in a lot of mythologies that you have this, the extreme way of proving either your loyalty or doing, getting some sort of ultimate reward that you really need. So, and of course, in Westeros and in many other places, it also ends up sort of intersecting with the idea of kinslaying. I mean, in the sense, is it considered kinslaying, for example, if the god tells you to do it?
Well, you know what? It's funny enough, as far as I know, we've never been said what the Valorians hold against kinslaying.
True. We don't know that they don't.
No. And George has introduced the idea of the sacrifice, not just of royal blood of having power, but the sacrifice of loved ones having power. In the story, I believe it's the first established chapter in the Clash of Kings, where Salladhor Saan tells him about the forging of Lightbringer by Azor Ahai, which required at the end that he plunged the forged sword into the breast.
He quenched it by plunging it into his wife's heart.
Nissa's heart. Yeah. So all this stuff exists, and we think it's been foreshadowed. And I know a lot of people push back against it because they love Stannis, they can't see. Someone tweeted me, because I was talking on Twitter with some people who were kind of disagreeing with my position, and I think it was History of Westeros people were agreeing, and then that person said, "Oh, look at people trying to make it palatable for Stannis to do it," and because what we said is he needs to be far more desperate. We know that he believes he has the fate of the world on his back. He has bought into the idea that it is destiny to fight the others.
It's not ambition.
It's
like
not
the showrunners want to say, that it's all about ambition winning out of familial love. I mean, that would be utterly horrible.
No.
I mean, it's horrible anyway, but that would be wrong for the character. That's absolutely wrong.
I mean, for their version of a character, but for the character in the books believes he's going to be destroyed in doing what is right. He sees the king with the burning crowd turn to ash, and he says to Davos, don't you think I know what that means? But we do what we must out of duty. And that's him. It's his duty to save the world. And you could say, he also sees it as his duty to get his daughter her birthright, to claim the throne for her. But push comes to shove. What's the point? What's the point of saving the throne for her if the kingdom is going to be destroyed? Right? End of the day, the thing that always leads to my head is, does this mean that in fact he may get the option of not sacrificing Shireen? He may say, I'll cast myself into the flames? That is a possibility. I will absolutely leave that open, but I think the fact that they've just revealed.
Yes. No, that is a possibility that I thought was still an option that prior to this, because that something was going to happen that required a sacrifice. I was almost quite certain about that. So in the sense, I don't feel spoiled myself about the fact that Stannis is going to survive Winterfell and get back to the Wall, because this does mean that.
Well, a lot of people have also argued, how is he going to get back to the Wall after the storm and, so on. There's a lot of pages between the start of the Winds of Winter and the ends of Winter and Winter. I don't assume that people are going to be nailed to one location the entire time. So, and you have no idea, really. So I don't. So, but
no,
certainly,
so I'm saying I never thought that. As in, I didn't think that he was going to die there, so I didn't feel spoiled about that point, because they do confirm that he's not dead at this point. He can't be dead if something more is going to happen. So I mean, that's part of the whole spoiler. They cut out a bunch of story potential there. So I certainly believed that he was going to be probably at the wall, because I think if this is going to require some major magic by Melisandre, she's said that she's stronger at the wall, one of the hinges of the world.
Good argument.
I think she's going to want to do whatever it is there. It was a possibility that he was going to sacrifice himself. I think that possibility also hinged upon him perhaps learning that he was not, in fact, Azor Ahai. Unfortunately, I think that George, who really likes his gut punches, is going to have Shireen sacrificed by Stannis, and then afterwards he's going to learn that he's not Azor Ahai.
But it was for no point.
And then that is going to destroy him for sure. That is maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll kill himself then. Maybe he will find another
charge.
Yes,
Yes.
How did we get there? But anyway.
But no, so the whole thing is that we think there's good evidence for understanding, but what they've done is said, yes, Shireen burns, and we ourselves are certain. Others want to push back against it. We don't see how. I think, I'll say this, I think the people who are pushing back against, who are trying to read it as openly as possible, are the same people who were convinced that Talisa was a Lannister spy, or the people...
I wouldn't say the same people, but it's an expression of the same mentality, or the same way of trying to read things into the show, that when it says things that you don't want to hear... You
come up with excuses or ideas for how... So, okay, it's the same mentality, it's the same thing that I don't want to believe that Talisa says this is pointless thing, so, they're tricking us and she's actually a spy. Or the people who have convinced themselves that, Cersei has tricked Jaime to go to Dorne with this whole, she has a copy of a necklace that Joffrey gave Sansa, she set this all up to get Jaime out of the way, and this last episode made it plain that that's not the case. So, it's the same thing, and what's the other one I kept pointing out? The people, first episode. No, they could have somehow made a switch so it's not actually Mance, it's Tormund who's burning. Because look how they're looking at one another. So maybe Tormund is now Mance and Mance. No, that's not it. They are perfectly able and willing to do things that you do not like. We learned this quite a lot. And like the Mance thing, I wasn't like hugely. They have 10 hours. There are things that they have to cut out. I absolutely believe that.
Man, they've got to the storyline in the North.
The North you compare the North storyline in Dance with Dragons to what they have here, and it's there's like nothing is left. But they have to cut somewhere. I will not question every single cut they make. Cuts have to happen. As we said, I take the position, cuts I can take. Changes, especially minor changes, I don't understand. I don't. Like, that they don't really save time, or it feels like they think they're improving on things that I'm not a fan of. But cuts have to happen. Everyone acknowledges this. To me, it is simply not possible for people to continue to fool themselves into thinking that if they do something you don't like, they've got some super clever trick and it'll turn out that it's exactly what I want.
They don't really do super clever tricks. Super clever. Super clever.
To be honest, I was trying to think of it, and I have to feel free to comment. I can't recall a single thing
clever that they've done.
Well, I mean, clever stuff is like stuff at George.
Yeah, so clever changes or clever things that they've done to sort of bring things together in a smart. There hasn't really been anything that stands out as. No,
and there have been no great fake outs that I can think of, but maybe someone else, like non-book fake outs. I just can't think of any. But hey, feel free to disagree and say in comments if you have a great fake out that you thought was fantastic. But the fact that I can't think of anything makes me think that's not really this kind of story they're telling. They don't tell a story based on faking you out and tricking you and trying to blow your mind with sort of how they twist the story around suddenly on you and you realize it's completely different from what you thought it was going to be. That's not really a story we're telling. I don't think they don't have the luxury for doing the proper setup for that. So, I don't see any room for this open interpretation other than wishful thinking. And that's sad to say because we have a big issue because what they've said is a genuine spoiler for the Winter Tudor. And we'll discuss that more in the next segment.
Yeah. So what was it that made us so very furious about this? Well, we want to start by stressing that, like, everyone who's read the books and who's watching the show, we definitely understand that the show is going to surpass the books. There's no way around that. It is definitely going to happen the next season. Even if The Winds of Winter is out, we can't be certain that season is going to stay entirely within the material of The Winds of Winter, for example. So, next season, all bets are definitely off when it comes to spoilers. This season, they have indicated that it does play largely within A Dance with Dragons, and so far what we've seen is that the storylines are actually within, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, except for the fact that they've moved up some events. For example, they had Dany and Tyrion meet. They haven't yet met, so that's clearly something for later. So they moved that into an earlier part of the storyline. And with this thing, with Shireen, we've seen Stannis past this point, more or less, or left him at this point or a little later in the book. So this is clearly, they have pulled the sacrifice of Shireen into a part of the storyline that was within A Dance with Dragons. In their compression, in their cutting out, whatever comes afterwards and so on, they've clearly moved some events up. That is not wholly unexpected, so the episode itself, we can't really complain about that. Yes, it is a spoiler in the episode, as in, or rather, something happens in the episode that hasn't yet happened in the books, that many people already thought was going to happen in the books, so it is a potential spoiler as you watch the episode. So if you really wanted to be safe, you should have stayed away from watching the episode. Absolutely. However, the problem for us, the big problem for us, is the inside the episode. The fact that they go out of their way to confirm it as something that George intends to do in the future. That means that you can no longer think that, this is happening at a point in the storyline where it can no longer happen in the books. So it's probably going to be quite different in the books. It may not even happen at all in the books, or it may be something... No, they've cleared that all out. They're saying that we're taking a later event that George intends to happen later on, we're moving it into this storyline, but we're confirming that this is how, more or less how George is going to do it, in the sense that it is going to be Stannis sacrificing Shireen. That is the big problem.
Yeah, for me, it's how would they like it if George was in an interview and kind of mentioned that, in season 6, they told me about this idea they have about having Jon Snow turned into a white. I thought that was a really cool idea that they were going to do, and I was looking forward to seeing it. And, do you think they would be happy with George revealing something that they haven't aired yet? Of course they aren't. Of course they aren't. The Winds of Winter is his. Game of Thrones is hers.
Yeah. They have to proceed with the show. We're not saying they have to wait for George or anything like that. They don't have to clarify in their extra materials exactly what comes from George and what doesn't.
And the worst thing is, George finally made a comment to someone who was asking him. A lot of people were asking him about this, and he said, if I commented on whether something will or will not happen, material I haven't even written yet, I would essentially be confirming the spoiler. Yeah. I'd be spoiling my own work, so I have no comment at this time. To me, that bit, he's working on The Winds of Winter. He hasn't yet written The Death of Shireen. And so I know some people say, oh great, he can just go now do something completely different if he wants. Which is like, guys, this story has been in his head for a very long time. And while he has twists and an organic approach, major points of the story
if he's been foreshadowing this since he introduced Shireen, do you think it's right for him to go and change this now?
Or to feel forced to do it? Or feel
forced to go, no.
No, so you can see why I think we and other fans are quite upset at their going out of their way. We're not the only people. Jason Concepcion at Grantland actually has a note about this in his Ask the Maester, pointing out that it was really rude. And he pointed out, and I'll quote something from 2011 in the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast, I think it's Jace Lacob who wrote this. Viewers were shocked by the death of Ned Stark, even though readers would have known this for almost 2 decades. Were you surprised that non-readers reacted so strongly to Ned's death? Benioff. The vast majority of the readers did an incredible job policing the various websites and trying to keep spoilers from ruining the surprise for non-readers. It's hard to emphasize how much we appreciate that. Our biggest surprise probably was that moment remained a shock for so much of the viewing audience. Okay, and Jason said, and we agree. It would have been nice if they gave the book readers the same courtesy. Again, yes, they draw on the material George gave them, but they don't have to actually say that material is what George gave them. It's one thing, of course, if you think about it. Let's say we get to season 7, and they reveal John's parentage, which we all know is a key plot point. We believe we know what the answer is. Many fans believe they know what the answer is, but regardless, when it's revealed, they will be revealing it. Unless George is doing it in book 6 and he manages to get it out before
I think he is doing it in book 6, but
it felt like it would feel like the appropriate place
I
to
think
do
that's why he wants it out so badly. But
well, let's say that he hasn't gotten it out. Let's say it's
yeah.
unpublished, and when they reveal it first on the show, that is something that is so central and key to the whole story that it would feel perhaps understandable. They would feel they have to credit and discuss George's plan. I mean, I could see them having to say, feeling like there's no way of talking about this without referencing George.
But also, as I emphasized here at the start, then everyone knows that they are fully into spoiler territory. They have completely passed the books. There's no question about it. At this point, there was still a question. Yeah. Very clear question, because they have this event happening much earlier than it actually will happen in the books. That is why you could be left with a lot of doubts, because as people say, when they object to us, our reading of it, that Stannis eventually will sacrifice Shireen, they say, no, Stannis is, hundreds of miles away from Shireen. He's at Winterfell. This is not going to happen. So clearly, there were a lot of doubts about whether this was something that was actually going to occur in the books or not. We feel that they kind of killed all those doubts. And that's what's so very wrong about them going out now. I mean, next year, if the book isn't out and we're not watching the show, which I'm pretty damn certain we won't be if the book isn't out. I'm not even sure I will want to watch it, even if it is out with this action. I don't trust them at all.
Well, because even if you think about it, even if the book is out, they may be rushing things to the point where we're into what is considered 7th book material.
Exactly, and clearly they will be. We can't trust what they're going to be
saying,
confirming in the extras. So
people say, we can avoid the extras. You don't have to look at them. But I mean, if you spend any time looking at threads about the episodes, people bring in things from the extras all the time.
Either you basically try and shut all things, Game of Thrones out of your life, which, probably requires a cave somewhere. But you can't pick and choose and say, like, okay, I'm going to watch the episode and maybe just discuss the episode and not look at the extras. That's not going to work.
No. And I mean, yeah, you just have to shut yourself out from all communication with people. I mean, if we were to post videos about next season, we would have to not allow any comments at all, because someone may in the comments say, hey, they said this is something came from George, but it didn't show up in the Winds of Winter, so it must be, So the fact that they did this, now, the thing is, some people said it's malicious, like David's taking a whack at all the fans by spoiling them, which is, I don't
actually, as much as I actually hate these two guys now, because I really do, I don't think it's malicious.
Some said that it was ass covering because
I'm still they know on board with that one.
My problem is they have no contact or communication. I know I know at second hand from someone who knows that they don't really look at anymore. The first season they did it, they don't really any longer look at any of the internet.
No, but they have been interviewed enough and gotten enough heat in interviews about decisions that they've made.
Well, yes, I guess they maybe they were concerned about the Stannis fans. They were more, oh my god, the children thing about I think the brutality in your setting and
being pressed in interviews about things like Sansa and what have you. So
fine.
Even if they don't look at internet comments, they still get tough questions in interviews.
Yeah, sure. Someone would ask about the brutality.
So the ass covering is still an option.
So okay, but mostly I think it was just thoughtlessness. Honestly, every time I see one of these inside the episodes of David in particular, he just looks more and more tired.
He should take a break. He really should take a break.
Yeah. It's a very grueling schedule. It's a lot of work that they do.
Long trip somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Regardless, I think it was an anecdote and it's a thing that he was sharing, and he really didn't think through the fact that, hey, wait a second, this is stuff that isn't in a published material yet, because I don't think they would appreciate...
You mean like the thoughtless actors who say, well, yeah, of course I know John isn't my son. And...
Yeah, you had this thing with all these actors who weren't really thinking about the fact of what it meant when they said, oh yeah, of course he's not my son, or, oh yeah, it's a Luke, like George told me it was a kind of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader kind of thing, and guys, thank you. You have to think a little bit about the people who kind of...
And I mean, frankly, it sounds like, Benioff and Weiss told a few too many people some of the things that they found out from George. I don't know, it's...
Well, like that Luke Skywalker thing was George was supposed to have told Alfie, supposedly, and
yeah, I certainly hope they weren't too loose mouthed.
I think Sean Bean, being the big headliner, I think they probably told him details about things. Yes,
didn't tell him to keep his mouth shut.
No, even now he's still going on about it when he's interviewed. So,
nice.
Anyways. The whole thing is very unfortunate, and I think it was faultless, and it's very unfortunate, and I wish someone would pin them down on it, and I wish they'd say, you're right.
I think they should apologize to George and to fans.
For all I know, they have apologized to George.
Well, they should apologize to fans.
That's a private thing, and I don't need an apology, and an apology does me no good. I'd like them to say, we're going to be more careful about that in the future, but if we don't have to comment on whether something is from unpublished material, we won't comment. That seems fair enough. Leave it ambiguous. Yes, in hindsight, will you read The Winds of Winter, or you read a DS and go, oh yeah, okay, George must have told them about this, and yeah, they did it in their own way, but it's clearly based on what George planned. So in hindsight, it's kind of a spoiler, but it's not really, because it's ambiguous and it's uncertain. They may narrow down the possibilities, or they may open a possibility you didn't think of before, but they will not absolutely confirm it. With this remark, they've absolutely confirmed at least a plot point of Shireen's death. Pretty certain that they've confirmed the fact that Stannis is involved in it, which means it has so many implications about so many things at the end of Dance of Dragons. Stannis is not dead, as the Pink Letter claims, and all these other things that kind of follow on from it.
I mean, I think we should also add, for us personally, we're not surprised. So I'm not feeling like, oh my God, they've, thrown out this major thing that has totally spoiled something that I had never thought of. I'm not surprised. I am offended and furious just the fact that they would be so thoughtless, or, or whatever they were, to basically not treat fans with the same respect that they thought it was so great that book readers treated, show watchers with, by not spoiling. It's the principle of the thing. Yeah.
As the thing is,
and the more I talk about it, the more furious I get again.
I mean, no matter how critical we are of a show and their decisions, and whether we hate, whether someone hates them or not, I personally don't hate them.
No, you're a nice person.
I think they have a very difficult job. I do kind of wonder if it's become so very difficult where they're rushing
things.
That
they should take a vacation.
They could,
a long vacation.
I don't know that, but they could appoint another showrunner. I mean, I understand, but it's a personal job for them, so I don't know. Anyways, regardless of that, HBO has always been very pro-fan, has been always very positive. They've had great contact with HBO.
And, we have tried our best to do, be protective of their rights, not discussing leaks, not posting leaked photos and, leaked information, leaked casting information, that we have. And
the first season we kind of did it. The first season we kind of did because we kind of were feeling out like what felt right. Yeah. But after that, we decided, and even then, if something came our way and we posted it, and then HBO said, "Oh, this shouldn't have been out there," we'd take it down immediately. After that, we decided we weren't interested in the game. We don't comment on leaked information, basically. If it comes from an official source, if it comes from a newspaper that has it officially from HBO, yes, we're happy to discuss it. But if it's just some random thing on the internet that someone, or worst of all, is someone who we know must have signed an NDA and spilled their, anyways, we don't discuss it. I mean, we get plenty of things sent our way, which we don't discuss. And it's not because we're special. Wait, we don't go and discuss it with anybody because we just don't think it's cool. So, and the leaked episodes, I was furious about the fact that, HBO's trust was betrayed. I came down hard on our forum. and people got very angry about our position. But the fact is that.
And now they leaked information from George's next book.
And it feels like such a betrayal when we personally, and I know we're not aiming at, but it's just our own experience has been that we've made so many efforts, and we will continue to make those efforts, mind you, to protect stuff for them because we think that they have the right to protect their information, which I suppose should lead into our final segment discussing a bit of furor that kind of followed the morning after this episode aired. We saw inside the episode, Linda became increasingly livid and upset about it. And in the end, on her personal Twitter account, Hipoyathanatoy, she tweeted, and I don't recall the exact wording, but basically that given what they did, she feels like...
well, there were a number of tweets, actually, where I went through the whole...
situation.
How I, was extremely upset with them. And finished off that because I felt this was such a betrayal of trust. I felt that, okay, so they were really happy that book readers didn't spoil for the show watchers. Well, I really feel like it would be great, it would be serve them right, I suppose, if, one could arrange a big campaign and spoil one of the big things coming up in episode 10.
Oh, yeah.
And...
unfortunately, Twitter has 140 characters, and I think the phrasing there ended up being a little ambiguous. And I know you disagree, but
we disagree.
Feels like, because if I say I feel like a hamburger and then I go get a hamburger, one fault on the other.
Well, if you got a hamburger every time you said you feel like a hamburger...
Okay.
Yeah. You can feel like something and then decide that, well, I really feel like doing this because I am furious and I think it would serve them right. But, on the other hand, it's really not going to have the impact that I desire, and it's going to it's going to hurt people who aren't them.
Yeah.
So I am not going to do it.
I mean, out of respect for George and respect for the other people at HBO who have done, this is a mistake, but specifically it's David's mistake, and I guess whoever was the editorial on this extra material who didn't really think about it, whoever was supposed to vet it and make sure it was, these are people who kind of messed up, and HBO, I guess, ultimately messed up. But I mean, you wouldn't actually do it. It was this venting about, it would serve them right, and of course it's not going to, But of course, because it was ambiguous and some people misread it, then the telephone game started, and all of a sudden...
I was spoiling things from future books as well.
No, but people were searching, but you spoiled things from the Winds of Winter. And
which, guys, there were also people commenting and saying that, we're just pissed off because David and Dan know things that George hasn't told us. We've said this on a number of occasions on these videos before. We don't ask him about spoilers or, future plot points. We don't want to know. That's why we really don't want to know about spoilers. We don't... From George or from anyone else.
No.
We've happily asked him about past stuff. And perhaps, I guess, I don't mind being spoiled, I suppose, about revelations about world details. Because that's something that we've have obviously in the various work and in, working on our game early on, we have gotten some historical stuff. And that's just cool. But, like, R plus L equals J true? No, we've never ever asked him anything like that.
No. We've had opportunities to talk. We've talked about him several times. We've spoken to him a lot.
And if he were to ask, do you want to know? Like, no.
So it's nothing to do with that. It is genuinely that we were just upset that they screwed up like this. Or, Dan didn't say anything. I keep saying they, but it's a nebulous they of everyone involved who kind of should have said, hey, that shouldn't be going out there. Now,
well, Dan was right there. He should have.
No, I don't know what Dan. They shoot it.
Yeah,
they could have been brought them in separately.
Fair enough.
So it got out of hand with people attacking Linda.
Yeah,
and Linda doesn't. If she's insulted, she insults back. But unfortunately, there's many, the dog pile started of people. There's random people on the internet jumping in. Even the people started saying, oh my god, she spoiled the big thing from Desert Dragons because, she made a comment to someone else directly to them. Yeah. And those people going through her timeline came across it. I mean, that's...
My timeline has never been spoiler-free in the sense that, if I'm talking with someone, tweeting directly to someone, not, direct messages privately, but actually just tweeting back and forth with someone and talking about the books. I'm not going to feel like I have to hide spoilers because, if you go looking for it,
that's a semi-public conversation. To me, it's like, if I'm talking to somebody about some secret stuff and you're standing next to me and you listen in, well, that's your fault. When you go and
I'm sure we've spoiled a lot of people in Gothenburg, just walking around talking about the books if they were listening in on us.
Yeah, I mean, so that isn't. So Linda did not spoil anything for anyone with the intention of spoiling, and that's how Twitter works. And don't go reading someone's timeline if you think they may have conversations about things. She certainly, and I just. So it got out of hand, and a lot of people were throwing insults around, and Linda insulted them back very happily.
It's kind of what I do.
It's kind of what Linda does. Anyone was saying, to me, the situation is such that people really blew it well out of proportion. So, no, this is settled. Linda did not threaten to spoil. She kind of vented and said she wished she felt like doing it. She would have, but she wasn't going to do it.
It's kind of like, I expressed in a tweet to somebody else, if I met a genie, I would wish, that the next season of Game of Thrones weren't going to happen. Yeah. I would tell the genie that. It is not a very realistic wish, is it?
No.
Along the lines of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I find...
And I mean, the funny thing is that it was, obviously, after I made this tweet, it was quite quiet for a while. There were a couple of comments.
It's when Reddit got a hold of it.
Yeah, and then, the internet blows things out of proportion, as happens, and it's not the first time. I don't feel that the fact that things get blown out of proportion on the internet is a reason not to say things.
No, certainly. I mean, I don't think why people would want anyone to feel that they have to be silenced or told, And I mean, I got some horrible stuff from people, misogynistic bullshit about, you could put your woman under control, put a muzzle on your bitch. I mean, come on, people, grow up. Especially when I'm not even involved directly in any of this. I agree with Linda, and I think you guys who jumped in and insulted her are assholes. But you were assholes because you felt threatened and felt that she had done something against you, and you were mistaken, and now you know you're mistaken. But it is a lot of not cool stuff was sent our way. That it happens. But as far as I can see, it settled down, and I hope that with this video, people will understand that exactly what was said.
Yes, because the one thing I'm still getting a lot of comments is the whole you didn't have to watch the episode, and I've been trying to reiterate so many times that it really isn't about
the episode,
or the fact that it contained
the scene
spoiler information. It is all about their confirmation of, you didn't have to watch the extras. Well, even if I don't watch them, they've still made a bad choice. Doesn't matter if I didn't watch it.
They've never done this before. They have never spoiled information from an unpublished material. So why would you think suddenly this episode, this is the one where we're going to do it? I mean, they could have done it well back with this Night King business.
Or they could have done it when, Dany meets Tyrion. They could have given information about what George intends for Dany's and Tyrion's meeting.
Yeah.
They didn't do that.
So it is a bit unfair to people to somehow have the sense that at some point in time they may do it. Especially, again, as Linda said, in a season where they emphasize that mostly we're in Dance with Dragons, you don't think that they would bring in something from the next book and make it explicit. The closest they've come to it so far is quite clear to building up to the Mercy storyline. I mean, the closest coming up. Yeah. Like, I thought, okay, when they meant they're bringing a little bit in, I thought, well, they're bringing a bit of the Mercy thing, when George published that chapter on his web page, so it's not really getting ahead. It's sort of it's published online. It's not not properly published. So
and there's a lot of people who haven't read it because they don't want to read ahead.
That is true. So it will be. But if so long as David and Dan don't say anything, so long as no one goes and tells them, oh, that's the Mercy chapter, those people can, if they just watch the episode, they watch just the inside the episode, and they don't really care about anything else, they won't really get bothered by it, I suppose. But as it is published. They can go and read the actual thing if they wanted. I don't know. People just, I think a lot of it has to do with how upset many people are about the Stannis situation.
True, probably.
A lot of Stannis the Manus guys are kind of going crazy over it and trying to convince themselves that no, it's not going to happen that way. And I think, I'm sorry guys, I think you've got the wrong read on Stannis. And I don't mean. Did I ever finish my anecdote? No, I didn't. Some guy told me about people trying to say it was palatable. We're trying to call out, and I realized palatable isn't the word. It's like saying that there was a palatable option in Sophie's Choice. No. There wasn't a palatable. It's not saying that this is how. It's the contextualization of it, where it feels an earned moment. It feels like Stannis is really driven to this point, whereas the situation he has in the show is so close to the situation he is in A Dance with Dragons, and yet we know that he is not at the point where he would consider sacrificing his daughter. Not that she's there, but he's not in that level of desperation. We know he's got a plan, he has an idea of what to do. The sacrifice will come at a point in time when he sees no other option. It's the same thing when Davos convinced him not to burn Edric. It's the same thing as at that point where, I mean, obviously he didn't have Edric, but he explained to him, you put the cart before the horse. You have to, just defend the kingdom to win the throne. But he thought he was done, but the only way he could go forward was through the sacrifice. And he realized, no, I can go join the battle against the others, because that's the ultimate purpose of all this. And from there, I can go win the throne. I will have new opportunities. I will manage it. When the opportunities are gone, when they're dried up, when his back is absolutely against the wall, and there's no Davos, there's no one to tell him, here's the alternative, I think he'll do it. And I think he will bitterly regret it, but it's his duty. And that's what matters in the end.
I think that's actually one of the points where people, to go back to the whole thinking that I spoiled something from The Winds of Winter, in that I threw out as one possibility that, for example, I think that Stannis might burn Shireen when the wall comes down. If that happens, which I still think is a distinct possibility. And I think somebody took it that I had inside information about the fact that the wall is in fact coming down.
We know nothing more than anyone else who isn't George knows about The Winds of Winter. So settle that one at least. Yeah. And when we, as I said, we are happy to not know. We want to read the book, or if George is kind enough, the manuscripts of it, but we don't want to actually get it just, this happens and that happens and this happens next. That's not really
the only situation where I possibly would consider that is the whole thing if the book doesn't come out. But it's not like George would have time to write up as a list, by the way, these things happen. No. So, but as an alternative, I think I would rather read George's Cliff Notes version before watching the show rather than...
I'd rather not watch the show.
But yes, I'd rather,
As it is, because we don't know what David and I are going to say in the future, we are very much seriously considering...
I don't really see how to do it. I mean, I like doing these videos.
Well, we can do them about the books instead.
Yeah, I mean, I like, having the conversations and so on. It's been a lot of stuff around the show has been a lot of fun, even if the show has been increasingly bad for my blood pressure.
Yeah. So that is where we are. We think the situation, what they said is a spoiler. By confirming events of an unpublished book, but they shouldn't have done it. That we and many other people are reasonably upset, because as they themselves put a value on people hiding spoilers for them. And they didn't give us that same courtesy. Yes, Linda tweeted something intemperate about the things, but it was well blown out of proportion. Intemperate. I have to come up with more. I have to go hit the thesaurus and find some other options. And I don't know. We've set our mind, and I think going forward, really people have to hope that David and Anne will kind of recognize that they shouldn't have said that, and that they won't do it again, until at least they're clearly into major foundational stuff. As I said, if they talk about Jon's parentage on the show, and it comes out before it's in the books.
It's probably going to be, as you said, along the lines of, ever since George asked us that question, who is Jon's mother? I said, they referred to it. It would be strange for them not to reference it.
It would be difficult.
It would be difficult I can understand it, absolutely. I don't really...
But this one was so unnecessary.
This was unnecessary. It was really unnecessary.
Yeah. Other than maybe I'm more convinced now, but they actually were thinking about the fact that the questions they're going to get about being so horrible.
I think especially with saying that, it's so horrible, but so good from a storytelling perspective. Yeah. It already felt like they were setting up as a little bit of a defense, and this was all George's idea. We didn't want to burn kids.
Yeah. Anyways, that is our views on the spoiler thing, and I think from now on, I think fans who don't want to be spoiled need to start treading very carefully. We'll find the people who are willing to say, hey, is there any unpublished material spoilers in the inside the episode or in this interview before you go and read it. Or just try and cut out as much of it as possible, which is a shame because a big part of a show like this is the stuff around it. The fan stuff, the interviews, the photos, the discussions, the videos, the podcasts, everything. So it will suck for a lot of people who kind of have to start withdrawing. But it is what it is.